In prison, stress will take you out just as quick as anything else will. I remember sitting in the day room playing cards and looking towards the TV room and watching somebody go into cardiac arrest, never to make it home again. You understand what I'm saying? That environmental stress as a whole is one of the main things that causes things like depression and health issues upon us. So the best thing you can do while you're in prison is to keep yourself out of stressful situations. And I can assure you the best way to do that is to not be affiliated, clicked up, or in a car. Again, if that's your way of life, I respect it. You've made a choice. It's for you. But for me, I knew that wasn't it. I was tired of being pulled into situations where fights, brawls, and worse started or occurred over nothing. A lot of times over words exchanged at a card table or a soup. People say it's over the principle, but I know for a fact that I can count on at least a few fingers how many times I've seen people not make it home or at least get severely injured behind cents to $1. I didn't want to live my life like that. I wanted to go home, and when I went home, I did not want to come back, and I could not envision myself still being clicked up, etc., getting a phone call from a buddy that got into it at a gas station. I got to pull up, put in work, and now I'm back in prison again. No, I'm going to put distance between myself and this now. I'm not going to walk around with a mask on my face, and when I go to my brothers and tell them I'm done with this way of life, whatever comes my way, I'm going to have to deal with. I understand there's going to be some repercussions. Hopefully it's just physical, but I know a time or two where people have not gotten up from the floor. But I couldn't live like that. I still had at least 8 more years on my prison sentence. That would mean that I would have to go compound to compound, faking and fronting, not really wanting to be a part of something and putting my life at risk, my freedom, etc. So many times people are running up their time, never making it home, getting years added on to their sentence because of the actions of somebody else put them in a bad situation, a fight, a rumble or more. I was going home. Around this same time, I remember a CO coming to me and saying there was a mentor program getting ready to start, an elder program, and they were looking for people that had influence on the yard that wanted to be mentors and leaders in the reentry building. And if I was interested, I could be a part of that. And he went on even further to say I'd be able to get the homies or the brothers or whatever jobs, get them into programs, essentially help keep them out of trouble so they could get home to their families sooner rather than later. To me, it made sense. I cared about the people I rocked with, and I did have influence. But I want to be clear. I didn't have influence because I was some silverback, guerrilla, aggressive, ultra. No. I took my lumps and my losses in there too. But what I did do, I treated everyone with respect in there. And in an environment like that, people don't treat each other with that type of respect. I would help the brothers. I didn't care what organization set you was a part of. 9 times out of 10, all the big homies, I had helped them write up some paperwork, fight a case, something, because I was, influenced by the streets in prison, but I never lost my book smarts. I would help people. I would, I'd be talking to a CO and get a brother a job because I knew he needed one. If I knew I could make it happen, I had that type of pull, and I seen this as an opportunity to help me and my brothers and other people, even in that environment. But still, I knew I had to separate myself permanently from this way of life. I had to. I didn't want to be a hypocrite and tell people, hey, you shouldn't do this, don't do that. And the whole time, I'm still moving a totally opposite way. I was ready, but I was going to be strategic. It was about timing, and you got to pay attention to politics because sometimes in that environment, doors open up, so to say, and you can walk out of these cars without anything happening, unscathed. It does happen. I've seen it, but I didn't know if it would happen for me. Why? Because the brothers, they were my brothers. We had a tight bond. And in situations like that, when you go up to the family and you say, I'm no longer going to be here with the family, a lot of times people feel betrayed. You remember growing up and telling your neighbor as a kid, me and my family are moving, and then your neighbor who was your best friend stops talking to you, at least temporarily. It's like that, but on steroids times 1,000,000. And sometimes they not just them not talking to you, it's they want to make sure you're not able to talk. So, man, I remember going up to some of the brothers sometimes and saying things like, man, I think I'm done with this. And they kind of laughed. They thought I was playing, but the whole time I really meant it. But since they were laughing, I kept it moving in the conversation. But I was going to wait for that time where I could make that announcement, and I was ready to deal with whatever I needed to deal with. I was already aware once I made the announcement, I'd probably end up in a hole because it would probably be a physical altercation or more. So I needed to prep my family or, my girl at the time, just in case something bad really happened without making the situation hot. Obviously, I couldn't talk on the phone, so I was waiting for visits, talk to my people, just let them know, hey, I'm really getting ready to grow up in here. I'm really ready to be a man, and I'm really making decisions that are going to better me no matter what and no matter how this plays out. But of course, when you're trying to do good, that's when things go super left. And one regular Tuesday, I remember I'm sitting in the cell. It's lockdown time right before lunch. And I hear the brothers, the young homies, the brothers that I'm in the car with, associated with at the time, they're saying how they got into it on the basketball court. And they got into it on the basketball court over a basketball game of which no money was being even on the line. And they got into it with a whole city, the city of Bad News. Shout out to Bad News, Newport News, Virginia at 757. But what was messed up about that situation, instantly I already knew he was outnumbered. Our car was probably about 80 deep, give or take. Theirs over 100 easy. Now word was traveling, there was an issue. By the time they finally let us back out on the rec yard, they let the building out that had the majority of the Bad News in it. I looked out the window because we hadn't been let off lock yet, and they were going underneath the ground, digging pieces of steel off the ground by the basketball court, and I knew we was in trouble. By the time we were out, my car, we lined up on one side of the yard while theirs was on the other. And we were clearly outmanned, outweaponed, and everything else. And as we started to walk like a scene out of Sparta, the big homies, big brothers, big dogs at the front of each of the cars meeting in the middle of the yard, I looked back and I seen our numbers drop to 60. Then I seen our numbers look like it dropped to 40 and 30 and 20. And by the time we stood in the middle of the yard where it was about to go down, I looked across to us at the opposition and not one of them guys left. They looked deeper than they did before, like people had joined them. But when I look back at the people that I had aligned myself with in the midst of warfare right there, they was gone and it was about to go down.